I know it's no longer spooky season, but for me, it's always spooky season. Hi guys, it's April, and I'm going to do this review the same way I do all of my other reviews. I'm going to have the non-spoilers section up front, followed by the spoiled filled dump afterwards, in case you don't want to spoil yourself. But of course, this is a judgment-free zone, so if you want to spoil yourself, spoil yourself. Now today I want to talk about the Final Girl support group by Grady Hendrix. This book. How do I even start with this book? So all of the slasher films from the 80s and early 90s. Take all of those films, make it set in real life, that each and every one of these actually happened, and there was that one final girl who survived, and then add them all into a support group. That is what this book is. So we have Lynette, who is our main final girl in this story that we follow. She is the one who is giving us all of the narration. And then you have the other girls from the other franchises that are in this group as well. Now, none of them are given the names that we know of in our universe, the slasher films that we have grown up with or maybe are enthralled by, like Halloween or Friday the 13th or Scream or any of that. But this book alludes to each and every one of those. This book has all of those elements of a slasher film. It gives all of those references. It has all of those nods, and it makes my slasher heart happy. Now, this book is not for everyone because it does go down those slasher tropes. It is highly predictable. There is that random person who is trying to hunt down all of these final girls. But there is that predictability there that we have all seen in slasher films. And we also have all of those characters in slashers that you never really truly like anybody in those films, which makes the death of a lot of these characters a little bit more palatable. They all fall into a certain kind of trope or character archetype that a lot of more modern horror has started to play off of. And it does have some very unrealistic events that happen. As you know, a lot of people get like injured or slashed or beaten or bloodied in these kind of stories, yet somehow, sometimes, some of them get up again, which doesn't make any sense. But all of that aside, I enjoyed this book. And mainly I enjoyed this book because of all the nods to what all those slasher films were setting up and all the things that they failed to say or failed to look at as they were taking on slasher films, like the feminism involved and all of that. I enjoyed this immensely. It is not for everyone. It is one of those stories that the first part of it isn't an exciting build. There are some minor exciting events that happen, but it is mostly the last maybe fifth of the book where a lot of the things really start to happen, really start to come together, which is some of those older slasher films. It's kind of how it goes. Now, I'm not giving excuses for this book. It does have its flaws, mainly because of how it does play with those slasher tropes. But because I feel weird saying that because I enjoy those kind of movies and that kind of genre that I enjoyed this book, but there is something inherently just exciting about how we see all of those older slashers mentioned and how maybe that would have affected the final girl in those movies, how they would eventually live life. Because I know the new Halloween movie just came out this year, and it does some of that look at, okay, we have our final girl, where is she now kind of concept. That is why I like this book. Not for everyone, but if you like that genre, highly recommend this read. Now, this is the point in which I am going to go into some more spoiled-filled thoughts. So if you don't want to spoil yourself, leave now. However, if you would still like to hang out with me, I would absolutely enjoy that because I just have a few more things to say. Now, Lynette is very much not the character that you want to like or support or even give any kind of credence to. Throughout the whole book, she is on the same kind of mind trap loop which I can kind of understand. She has a little post-traumatic stress because of what she's gone through, and the fact that a lot of people don't want to recognize her as a final girl. She was just kind of an afterthought. She didn't survive on her own merit like a lot of the other final girls did, so they don't necessarily want to give her that title. But this book is her redemption, kind of. We have a lot of talk about a lot of these girls getting their sequel and having to fight rabid fans who have taken things too far. They have become their new Phantom or whatever. And then we have Lynette, who's like, well, maybe this is my sequel. Does she handle it the best? No. Most of the time, Lynette wants to run, which, given fight or flight, makes sense. Not everyone's gonna want to fight. Not everybody is a strong final girl, which this book kind of starts to point at, because yeah, a lot of the other final girls, they stood up to whoever was chasing them. They fought for whatever they wanted, and Lynette was just kind of played dead and I survived kind of thing. But in reality, that is what most people probably would have done. It wouldn't have made quite the epic story that a lot of these other final girls had, but it also led to survival. But it also meant that she let people around her die. And that might be the biggest fight between a lot of the populace and the final girls, and why she's not considered is because these final girls, they were fighting for something. They stood up for something. They were saying something, and then Lynette just wasn't. And because of that kind of personality trait, she was hard to like as a character, because you got to see those thought processes and that a little bit of the selfishness, that survival instinct, and how she interacted with other people. And then finally she gets that moment at the end where she's like, okay, I am finally let other people in. I've got to support my other final girls. I'm going to do this. This is going to be my last swan song, because I'm probably not going to survive. But at this point, all the crud I've been through, maybe that's okay. And here's where I know a lot of people I've talked to about this in my personal life. This is where things start to fall apart from them, because she goes through some things that a normal human being wouldn't be able to get back up from. She is run over by a car and yet somehow is able to travel quite a distance and then confront the people who are doing all of this and come out on top. And of course, all of this was her fault in the first place, because she had to write it all down, everything that has ever happened in the support group, and then get hacked. And that's how all of this happens, which kind of makes sense. I mean, a lot of us keep a journal to keep our thoughts straight. We don't ever think about the fact that, hey, maybe the digital space isn't the safest place to keep that. And then someone eventually is going to come along and take that. So it isn't her fault at the same time. And the fact that people hated for the fact that she wrote any of this in the first place as her coping mechanism dives into a whole nother realm of how we expect these final girls to look a certain way because they survived. I don't know. There's a lot of discussion that can be had about mentally if a lot of this actually happened to a human being, and the fact that it is always seen as females being the primary victims of this, because they are called the final girls. It is that final girl who always seems to be the only one who walks away. And the things that we put on that persona, on that character, and what that is saying about the storytelling of things like this and the entertainment value of things like this. This book kind of starts to play with some of that and make you think about some of that, if you decide to think about that. Because, I mean, you could go into this book for just pure entertainment value like you do a regular slasher film. But you can also sit there and you can dissect it for what each of these characters are telling about the fact that they're survived and how they're reacting to everything going on, and the people who are coming at these characters. And I liked that kind of the mental starting to wrap myself around all of that. I would love to hear what you guys have to say if you have picked up this book, because there is a lot of discussion that can happen from this book. So start a conversation with me down below. I would absolutely love that. And of course, if you would like to see more content like this, subscribe down below, hit that bell, do all the things to get all of those notifications, and I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.